Welcome to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore. It is week 3 of the NFL season, and joining me to break it all down is my co-host. He is the Bull of the Woods, Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, how are you on this Saturday just now afternoon?
I am doing absolutely fabulous. My Ravenna Ravens high school team got their first win last night, so that was nice to see. Daughters got homecoming tonight, so got a lot of family stuff going on this afternoon. But fortunately, we get to talk football first.
Yes, and it's a special weekend for me too. Tomorrow is my first anniversary to my beautiful spouse, Minor. We went.
Happy anniversary to the two of you.
Thank you.
Plug the restaurant.
Oh, we went to Valerio's last night in Little Italy.
Yeah.
It was really good. It was really good. We had an excellent dinner and an excellent time, just like I had an excellent time on Thursday night watching all of my bets win because I bet on San Francisco to kick New York's ass. I know you did the same. So, Jimmy, take a bow.
Yeah, it was an easy one. You know, when you start to get in NFL games, a lot of times if the spread's more than 10, you want to stay away from it. But San Francisco is just that much better than New York. And the sites were asking to be hammered for the player props they were giving for 49ers skill players. So there was a lot of easy money to be made.
To piggyback on the overs for San Francisco, I put a sizable bet on the Daniel Jones under for yardage. I think it was 211 passing. I knew San Francisco's not a team that lets up at the end. Like, they want to be great. They have scores to settle after all the quarterbacks got hurt in the playoffs last year. They got something to prove. That team looks like a juggernaut, and I think we should be betting Christian McCaffrey to score a touchdown every week. That's got to be in every prop you make because that dude's just a touchdown machine. They're giving him a lot of carries, so you can't go wrong with his over-under generally sits around 70, somewhere in there. Any quarterback they're playing, I just think you got to take the under. Running backs, receivers, San Francisco is one of those units right now that I want to have money on them doing well because they seem to always exceed expectations.
Yep.
While the 49ers do a lot of exceeding of expectations, the Cleveland Browns over the last 25 years have done a lot of failing to meet expectations. And at the center of that is Deshaun Watson, as it seems, Jimmy, that most of the Cleveland Browns fan base is coming around to our side of this, that Deshaun Watson is never going to be an elite quarterback again. And the best they can hope for is that he just becomes okay.
Yeah, but we both know okay isn't probably going to cut it in the AFC.
No, not at all. Let's get to the game. Cleveland is hosting Tennessee. They are 3.5-point favorites now. This line has moved a half point from Tuesday. The Browns are minus 178 on the money line. The Titans are plus 150. Over-under sits at 39.5. I'm not going to bet this game, Jimmy, and I would advise people not to bet this game. You may tell them different, but this is one of those two bad quarterbacks play, and you don't really want to have money riding on either one of them, in my opinion. How do you approach a game like this where you can't trust either QB?
Well, I think you can trust both QBs to not score a lot of points. So I think you can hammer the under here. I think if you're making some parlays, some best bets, I think the under in this game is the way to go. Even with Chubb being out, even with the poor play of Deshaun Watson, I believe the Cleveland defense is good enough that they can still win this game by a touchdown. So I am taking the Browns here for the course of our pod. I do agree with you with just betting the point spread on this game. I would stay away from it because you really don't know what Cleveland is going to look like. So give Stefanski a game to see what the offense is going to look like. We don't know. Is Kareem Hunt going to immediately be in the fold? We'll see what Ford looks like, see what kind of the offense they roll out. So I would stay away from the spread on this game, but I think the under is one of the best, safest bets of the weekend.
The one thing that I look at in this game is the Cleveland Browns defense is so good. We have not really seen them against a team that's good running the football and wants to attack them running the football to set up the pass, so that will be interesting to watch. I think that's sort of their last test. Can they stop Derrick Henry and a team that wants to physically dominate them? How do they hold up? I know they did it last week against Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh can't run the ball against anybody. So How I don't think Tennessee has a good offense, but it'll be a good measure because if the Browns dominate this game defensively like I expect them to, then the Browns start becoming a defense like San Francisco that we have to start looking specifically at the passing props because they seem to just be shutting down quarterbacks left and right.
Yeah, it better not be a hard thing to figure out. Derrick Henry couldn't get 100 yards against the Chargers last week. So they better be able to hold Derrick Henry. If the Chargers can do it, the Browns better be able to do it as well. And I think the defense knows that. I think the defense is well aware that there are games that they can win just by the defense being dominant. And this is one of them. I don't think Tennessee can scheme touchdowns against the Browns.
No.
So the best they can get to are field goals. But to do that, Derrick Henry's got to be successful. So they need to hold him around that 2.5, 3 yards of carry and really shut him down like the Chargers did last week.
Yeah, so I like the Browns to cover, not as much as you do. It is difficult for me to have any confidence in the Browns when Deshaun Watson continues to just look as bad as he does. And he made a lot of media comments this week. He took some responsibility, also made some excuses. I think a lot of this is all just noise. What has driven me nuts this week is this hypocritical thing that we see with, a decent section of Browns media, and a lot of it's on talk radio, and a decent section of the fans that are making every excuse for Deshaun Watson. It is interesting to see after what we saw with Baker Mayfield. He wins a playoff game in Pittsburgh. They get overwhelmed by Kansas City late in that game, and everybody sort of just failed the defense to offense Baker, and then they don't give him that contract extension, and it's just been downhill for the Browns ever since, man.
Yeah. I'm going to save some Baker talk I have for the Philly-Tampa Bay game, but I absolutely agree with you. You've put yourself in a situation, and I don't think you can make any more excuses for Deshaun Watson. Like, the Browns overhyped how good Deshaun Watson ever was. Like, he was never elite. He was very good, but I don't think he was elite. I don't think he was quite in that of eliteness that a quarterback should have to be in to be worth 3 first-round draft picks and the most guaranteed money ever to a player.
Well, I think that also plays into you and I have very different definitions of elite than everybody else, it seems. Because when Baker was, clearly in 2020, he was like the 8th to 12th best quarterback, which I don't think there's a lot of difference between the 8th and 12th best quarterback year to year, so whatever. But people were like, is he elite? And it's like, no, he's not elite, but that doesn't mean he's trash. And if you have 12 quarterbacks as elite, then I think that word loses its meaning, because I think you and I both think elite's like, 2 to 4 guys, maybe 5.
Yes, exactly. So I think there's a lot there, but there can't be any more excuses. There can't be. Like, hopefully during the course of this season, for the Browns organization, he plays better, but there cannot be an excuse made for him.
No.
We've been told over and over again since the trade happened that he's been doing all the right things, putting in all the work. Then why does the product on the field look like it looks?
Yeah, why are there communication problems? Why are guys out of sync? Yep. I don't know, Jimmy. It's almost like that trip they took to an island paradise wasn't all about work.
Now.
Shots fired.
I was not prepared for that, bro.
Oh, it's just the Browns have to win this game. I think the crowd will be really hyped to start. I think that's going to feed the defense. I don't know what the offense is going to look like. If Deshaun looks bad in the first quarter, he's going to get showered with booze, and that's probably not going to go well for him the rest of the game. But I think the Browns should win this game. I think the Browns have to win this game because Baltimore and San Francisco loom on the horizon, and those look like losses. But before Baltimore takes on Cleveland next week, Baltimore is home and hosting the Indianapolis Colts. They are 8-point favorites. The over-under is 44.5. The money line for the Ravens is -400, +310 for the Colts. I don't got a lot to say about this game, Jimmy. I don't care who's quarterbacking for the Indianapolis Colts. This is the type of game Baltimore lives for. It's their bread and butter. I think they win this one easily. They cover, go to 3-0. What say you?
I got some things to say about the Colts quarterback situation. So, Anthony Richardson has looked better than I thought he would look. He has looked okay. Shane Steichen is trying to get him killed already, running all the time.
Well, it's the only way they have any chance of competing.
I do not understand, statistically or with an eye test, why people think Gardner Minshew is one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't understand it unless it's a little bit of like an everyman syndrome. Like I don't get it.
I think that's a lot of it.
I do not understand why anyone thinks a team should play Gardner Minshew, a quarterback, and expect to win. Because every time he starts, people think he's going to win, and then his team gets blown out. He throws 3 picks, and everybody goes, "Oh, that's okay."
Yeah, but he throws for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns with those 3 picks, and everybody ignores the fact that he turns the ball over, and in really key moments, he just doesn't have the tools to get the job done.
They were down 3 touchdowns because of the 3 and outs in between the 3 turnovers. Like I don't get it.
Well, he looked really good last year, filling in for a game or 2 in Philadelphia with all those weapons and a great offensive line. So, of course, that's going to translate to the Indianapolis Colts, where they don't have any of that.
Yeah, so definitely give me the Ravens here. This is a lock for me. They'll win this game by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, this is a game I'll be putting in parlays and some team teases. For the Monday night affair, Cincinnati is 3-point favorites. This line has also moved a half a point since Tuesday. They are minus 170 on the money line. The Rams are plus 143 on the money line. Over-under sits at 43.5. Jimmy, the Rams are better than we thought. Cincinnati has struggled. What do you make of this game?
Is it possible, even with all the talent they have at certain positions, the Bengals' window is already closed?
No, because I think as long as Joe Burrow's healthy and they have some semblance of talent around him, their window's open, but they don't have a healthy Joe Burrow. Like this line tells me he's not playing.
Well, yeah, but I'm taking the Rams here. I think the Rams win this game outright. So I'll happily take the +3 and the money line at plus 147. The Rams offense is doing enough, and the defense looks like it's fixed as well. They've been giving everybody. They've been wrecking everybody's offensive line, so I don't see why the Bengals would be any different. If Burrow plays, we know he's not fully healthy, so they're going to just come after him. And I really think the Bengals are about to be 0-3.
I totally agree with you. I saw this line and I started salivating at the plus 143, which actually has me a little worried. Maybe Burrow comes in and puts in a miraculous game at home, but everything you said about the Rams is true. McVay's really got that offense humming. The defensive line looks as good as ever. I liked the under before the season, but I was open to the idea of them being good, and I think this is a good team. They really hung in there with San Francisco last week. And if we're going to give San Francisco credit for being as good as they are, we have to give the Rams credit for being as good as they were. So they look like a third, maybe they can climb up into a second-tier team. A win this week would really put them in that group.
Yeah, and I love, obviously, partly because of the bet that was out there, but I loved McVay kicking the field goal at the end there. That was incredible.
Well, there is the idea that you should kick the field goal as soon as possible and then go for the touchdown after the onside kick. That way you give yourself as much time as possible to get down the field to score the touchdown. So I know a lot of people are crying foul, but that's something that has been talked about for a long time that for some reason most NFL coaches don't do. You see it in college sometimes.
Yeah.
Rounding out the AFC North is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They will travel to Vegas, baby, to take on the Raiders. The Raiders are 2.5-point favorites, minus 150 on the money line for them. The Steelers are plus 126. Over-under on this sits at 43. This is the Sunday night affair. Pittsburgh kind of on the short week. Kenny Pickett, man, he does not look like an NFL quarterback, but that Steelers defense looks like they don't give a damn, Jimmy.
Yeah, they really don't, and I think the Steelers will do just enough again here, too. I actually like the Steelers to win this one outright. So I'll take the points and the money line on this one too. I think Jaylen Warren's going to have a big game. I think he's going to continue to steal touches from Najee Harris, maybe back some people off the line, maybe give Pickett a little bit bigger windows to throw in. But we saw against the Browns, who have a great defense, Pickens is going to get open somewhere along the line. Mm-hmm. And if Pickett gets it close to him, he can wreck a game like he did. So I am actually going to go with the Steelers here.
This is another one that I really liked. The Raiders don't have the defense to really make Kenny Pickett have to work.
No,
so
they don't.
Everything we've seen from him against San Francisco and Cleveland should not necessarily apply to Vegas. He should be able to find some holes here and there. Najee Harris is done. The dude he doesn't look as fast. Every time he was on the field was a win for the Browns because Jaylen Warren's just better.
He looked really good.
It's not as stark a difference, but when they drafted Chubb, who was the starting running back that year? I can't remember.
I don't remember either, but I know
But remember how it was like Chubb would get like 4 carries in a game and have like 57 yards. It's like, why isn't that guy starting?
Yep.
Jimmy Garoppolo, he's the type of quarterback a defense like the Steelers eat up. That Steelers defense is just like San Francisco's defense. As long as TJ Watt's on the field, I'm liking unders for the other side. They're just good, man, and this is the type of game Pittsburgh wins to always have a winning record. Moving to the rest of the AFC, we see the Miami Dolphins hosting the Denver Broncos. The Dolphins are 6.5-point favorites. They are minus 292 on the money line. Broncos plus 235. Over-under on this sits at 48. Everybody seems to be thinking this is where Denver turns it around. I just don't really see how they're going to turn it around when Russell Wilson has been so bad in the second halves of these games.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll get the run game going against Miami. I think Javonte Williams will have a decent game, but we talked about it at the beginning of the year. As long as Tua is being kept upright and healthy, the Dolphins are a problem. So far, he's upright and healthy. I don't know how the Dolphins would win this game by less than a touchdown. I think some crazy stuff would have to happen for Denver to be able to hang in with them in the second half. So this is the Dolphins easy here.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the Dolphins. That offense just seems to be able to score at will. They just put up 30 points when Tua and those receivers are on the field. We talked last week before their game about betting Hill and Waddle in player props. It didn't totally work out last week, but I think every time those 3 guys are on the field, you can make that bet and you're going to win it more than you lose it. Plus, you're getting plus odds on Jaylen Waddle to get 75 yards. Like that's great. That's just a great value bet. Denver's defense, man. I know everybody talked about them being elite, but that's like a 14 guys are elite thing. I don't think they have the juice to keep up with Miami, and right now it looks like you have to take Denver under in the second half and whatever the spread is against Denver in the second half because they've just been so bad in the second halves of games. Like if that's what's going to continue and that's going to be a trend, pound the shit out of it and make your money.
Yep.
A team we've been able to make a lot of money on over the course of the last 20 years is the New England Patriots because normally when you bet on Bill Belichick, it goes well. Recently, that has kind of changed, but some things don't change, Jimmy, and that is Zach Wilson against the New England defense. New England, only a 2.5-point favorite in this game. They are on the road, minus 150 on the money line, plus 126 on the money line for the Jets. Over-under sits at 36, which is a full point down from where it was on Tuesday. I can't remember the last time the Jets beat the Patriots, and Zach Wilson is the guy that's keeping us from saying Deshaun Watson's the worst quarterback in the league. So I like the Patriots here.
Yeah, this Patriots team is not necessarily good, and the Jets still can't. The Jets still can't get the home 3. Like the fact that they only got 2.5 is crazy to me. Yeah, this is Patriots. I like.
Go ahead.
I like the under here. I like the under here too. I don't think there'll be a lot of points scored, but New England will win this by a field goal at least. Yeah, they can play some defense.
Did you see that Bill Belichick picked up like the best backup quarterback that was out there? And it was almost like he's trolling the Jets. It's like, no, I'm not even going to let you try and pick up that guy.
No, it's the little brilliant
he's
crazy
so
things
petty
he
and
does.
I love it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The pettiness level of one of the most winningest coaches in sports history is incredible.
A really interesting matchup that I saw on the schedule, Jimmy, was Buffalo traveling to Washington to take on the Commanders. Buffalo are 6-point favorites. That's down a half point from Tuesday. Minus 260 on the money line for the Bills, plus 210 for the Commanders. Over-unders 43. A lot of questions about how consistent Josh Allen can be. That Washington defense looks pretty good. Do you think Washington can keep this close and really make Josh Allen look like the bad Josh Allen?
I think this will be even Josh Allen. I don't think he'll look bad, but I don't think he'll look great. I think the Bills will win this game, but I think the combo of Rivera with Bieniemy has the Armada offense scoring points and moving the ball like they haven't done recently, and I don't believe they'll play to lose by less. Like, I think the Armada are going to keep coming. I think they'll get a backdoor cover, so I'll take Washington at +6 here.
I'll take Buffalo. I don't like it. I'm not going to bet this game. What I'm really watching this game for is what does that Bills defense look like? Because if they're not going to be quite as good as they have been the last couple of years, then that really lowers their ceiling.
Well, and it's something we talked about in our AFC preview. How much does the absence of Leslie Frazier affecting the defense?
Yeah. I mean, if they can't go out there and shut down Sam McDowell in this Commanders offense, I mean, even as good as those guys are coming up, as Bieniemy is at coming up with schemes, that's just like Washington doesn't have a high-powered offense, and Buffalo's going to have to play a bunch of those this season. So if they can't slow anybody down, that's a real problem for them.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I do think it's a good litmus test. These are the kind of teams that Buffalo needs to be able to handle easily if they're going to stay in the elite of the AFC.
A team knocking on the door to being elite in the AFC are the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are home, and they are hosting the Houston Texans. This line is now Jacksonville -7.5. This was 9.5 on Tuesday. The money line is -365 for the Jags, plus 285 for Houston. Over-under sits at 44. All right, I'm going to wave the white flag, Jimmy. I'm willing to say that C.J. Stroud has been good, given into account what is around him. So the question I have for you with this game is, how many of those linemen are going to be back?
Not enough. Not enough of them. Hopefully this is the offense gets right for our Jaguars game this week. So I think the Jags will win this by 2. We'll win this game by 2 scores. But I think there's going to be points scored on both sides of the ball. So I like the over here in this one as well.
This is the type of matchup that we'll see Houston maybe get some late scores in the fourth quarter. And that's why we can get such good numbers on San Francisco, because Jacksonville's defense isn't good enough to stop teams that late, and they don't really want to try to stop teams that late when they're up. So I was a little hesitant at 9.5. At 7.5, I really like Jacksonville. I don't think that Houston defense is very good, but C.J. Stroud has shown me something, especially last week. He looked really good. He hung in there, made some really tough throws, and he seems to be making throws with anticipation, which that seems to be the key to quarterbacking in the NFL right now.
Yeah, so there was a clip, and it was just pretty hilarious. So they looked like they were about to kind of take control of the game and really get the comeback going.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran like a play action bootleg to the left. And the guy who was filling in at left tackle completely missed the block, and Stroud just got hammered, right?
Yeah.
And one of the two play-by-play callers was trying to blame the play on C.J. Stroud's inexperience. And the other guy's like, dude, your left tackle has to be able to block for at least a second. This is not Stroud's fault. Like, it was pretty funny. He was just like, no, you're not slandering C.J. Stroud on that play. That was not his fault. Like, he was sideways when he got tackled. Like, he didn't even get to square up after the bootleg. Like, it was so sad. I'm just like, oh, no, not again. Don't do this to another quarterback, Houston.
A team looking to get back on track offensively, oddly enough, is the Kansas City Chiefs. This is probably a good game for them to try to get right because they're hosting the Chicago Bears. They are 12.5-point favorites, minus 800 on the money line, plus 550 for the Bears. Over-under sits at 48. All sorts of weird shit going on with all sorts of weird shit going on in the Bears locker room. Some comments by Justin Fields, I think, were manipulated and kind of taken out of context to create a firestorm. Him and his coach seem to have made peace. They hugged the other day. I think that's the type of stuff that fans and media make a big deal out of, but inside the locker room, nobody gives a shit. And I don't know what's going on with their defensive coordinator. Nobody really seems to know what's going on with their defensive coordinator leaving. So we probably shouldn't speculate, but regardless, it just comes down to, I think Kansas City's good. I don't think Chicago is. Do you think Kansas City can cover this 12.5, Jimmy? Because historically, they don't cover big lines.
I think they'll cover this one, and I'm going to speculate a little bit. I mean, the guy had FBI raids, man. Like, yeah, it's not good.
It's not a good look.
It's not good. And there was $100,000 worth of equipment stolen from Soldier Field. Like, the Bears are having a very Cleveland Browns week. Like, that is rough. And then you got to go into Kansas City. And I think Kansas City, I think there were drives where they had to score points last week and they did it. But I think they could use one of those big-time offensive, defensive, full-game performances. And I think the Bears are unfortunately going to be on the receiving end of that. So I think they win this game by 2 touchdowns. The 12.5 is not scaring me in this one.
Even though they don't historically cover big lines, I'm with you 100% on this one. I think Kansas City rolls. This feels like a put-your-foot-down game.
Yep.
Just to get the media off their backs. And, like, look, we can turn it on whenever the fuck we please. They look like they're trying to figure some things out. Whenever they really need to, they can just feed fucking Kelsey, and nobody can stop that.
Nope.
We've seen it for enough years now that it's when they need a completion, they're going to throw the ball to Kelsey, and you can't stop that.
Yep.
Our next matchup is Jimmy. Jimmy and I are huge wrestling fans, or at least we used to be. We like the old school wrestling. And back in the territory days, it was frequent for teams to have loser leave town matches, especially when somebody's contract was up. That way you could kind of wrap up a feud and somebody would leave. They'd have to never come back when, they would just go to another territory. But it was a great story. Which brings us to the Minnesota Vikings and the LA Chargers. Both of these teams are 0-2. Things aren't going well for either of these teams. Minnesota just can't seem to not turn the ball over. And the Chargers just charge it up everywhere they go. This was a pick'em on Tuesday. The Vikings are now favored by -1. -115 on the money line for the Vikes. -105 for the Chargers. Over-under sits at 54. I don't want to have money on either one of these teams, but if I'm going to have any money in this game, it's going to be on Justin Jefferson to be a fucking beast, Jimmy.
That's fair. I like whether it's Eckler or Joshua Kelly. The Vikings, along with
is out for this game. I saw.
Yeah, so it'll be Josh Kelly. Along with the Vikings turning the ball over, they're really struggling against the run. So I hope Kellen Moore put something together. The Chargers get a run game going. I agree with you. It could be a good game, big game for Justin Jefferson, but I'm going to go ahead and take the Chargers in this one. This is like, for one of these teams, it's going to be the end of their season after Sunday. These are two teams that absolutely had playoff aspirations, and one of them is done after Sunday, which is crazy to me.
We have seen in Cleveland time and time again when teams just don't respond to their coach. And that seems to be what might be playing out with the Chargers. Well, everybody thought they were going to move off of Staley last year. Defense is his specialty, and that's where they've just been awful. It doesn't seem like he has that locker room at all.
Yeah, I mean, especially it had to be weird for him because, last year he made a lot of decisions that we all learned to stop making, like the first year we played Madden, like as a child. But then it's like this year he's like overcorrected and he's being too conservative, which I'm sure that's frustrating in the locker room. So I agree with you. It feels like there's a problem there. And if they lose this game, problem may be solved. Like,
yeah, they've got Kellen Moore waiting in the wings.
Yeah, so.
Up next, we have the game you teased earlier, Jimmy. Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are favored by 5, minus 225 for their money line, plus 185 for the Buccaneers. Over-under on this one sits at 45, which is actually down a point from earlier this week.
Yeah.
This is the Monday night affair, Jimmy. What do you think we'll see?
Yeah, I like the under here. I think both these defenses are pretty good. I don't think it's going to be a real high-scoring affair, but I think the Eagles are a touchdown better than Tampa. So I'm going to say the 5 doesn't scare me. I believe they're a touchdown better, so I'm going to take the Eagles. I will say, though, this is a big test for Baker. If he can look good and competent in this game, I think he's really going to be starting to flip the narrative of happened in 2021. I really believe that. Like if it's at some point somebody other than us is going to have the conversation of, regardless who was letting it happen, maybe it was just as simple as Baker was not an elite quarterback, healthy. Even healthy.
Well, we just had that conversation earlier that at his best he was 8 to 12, which is that's not elite.
The way he performed injured is exactly how he should have performed injured. And who the hell was letting him play injured? Like, I really think.
Let's not get into all that again.
Right. But I really think that narrative could flip if he is competent and competitive in this game against a Philly defense that can get after it. Because he's moving again. He's scrambling just enough. He's running just enough that he's getting the job done. And like I said, I don't think Tampa can win this game, but I think they can keep it. I think it'll be a competitive, good football game.
Baker Mayfield for comeback player of the year, plus 2,500.
Why you got to tell me that, bro?
I'm just saying, we made a little money on our parlays and everything on Thursday night. That might be worth throwing like $20 on.
I don't think you're wrong.
I mean, 2 is plus 300. Oh, never mind. I forgot. DeMar Hamlin's here. It's going to be DeMar Hamlin. If he makes it through the whole year and he plays fine, it's going to be him. Sorry, just forget everything.
There should probably be a different award.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, dude almost died on the field. He's going to come back and play.
Yeah.
I agree with you that the Eagles are just better than Tampa Bay pretty much across the board. I think that Philadelphia defensive line is going to limit the Tampa Bay running attack, and I think they're going to be able to pressure Baker, and those are two things that tend to not work out well for Baker. I think they're going to be able to pretty much slow down that Tampa offense. And Philadelphia's defensive line taking the under on running backs that they're playing is another one of those things that I feel like we should just be pounding every week.
No, I will say, the thing that was supposed to happen when Odell came to Cleveland, which was Baker can just go, screw it, Odell's down there, just throw the ball, that did not work at all.
Yeah.
Does seem to be working with Mike Evans. So
let's not forget that Mike Evans made Johnny Manziel a first-round draft pick.
Fair enough.
So, I mean, he seems like he's pretty good.
Mike Evans, still good at football.
Yeah, still good at football. Up next, we have the Dallas Cowboys. They are traveling to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. This is another line that moved. It was 12 earlier in the week. The Cowboys are now favored by 13, Jimmy. Minus 700 on the money line for them, plus 500 for the Cardinals. Over-under sits at 43. This just seems like a cakewalk because everything I said about San Francisco being able to shut down bad quarterbacks, I can say about Dallas. That's another defensive unit I like betting on and betting on their opposition to not do well. And I will assume, Jimmy, that you don't think Josh Dobbs stands much of a chance here.
No, I think it's crazy that this line was 12.5, and then Dallas's best corner gets injured and goes out, and then it moved to 13. Like, I think that's great.
Because it just that will limit their ability to be really good and elite. But in this game, it's not going to matter.
Not at all. Give me the Cowboys here. This is easy. This one's easy.
I think Dak has a big day, silences some of his critics, kind of like what we think Kansas City will do. And I still don't understand all the criticism of Dak. Again, he suffers from some of the same stuff that we saw with Baker, where like you can't have 8 guys be the best quarterback in the league. Like there has to be a hierarchy.
There does. Like it's okay, but Dak's still really good.
Yeah, and with that defense, is Diggs out for the year? I didn't even see.
Yeah, I believe it's a year-ending injury.
So with Diggs out for the year, that definitely hurts their ability. That drops their ceiling a little bit. But if Dak can just not turn the ball over like he did last year, which for most of his career has been what he's done, if he can stop turning the ball over, I think they're still contenders for the Super Bowl. And this team's really good, man.
Yeah, so far it looks like they made the right decision handing the keys over to Tony Pollard. He's looked pretty good so far.
Yeah, and Zeke still looks slow for New England.
Yep.
Up next, we have a really interesting game between the Detroit Lions, who are hosting the Atlanta Falcons. These are two teams kind of vying for that second tier of the NFC. The Lions are favored by 3. The money line on them is minus 170, plus 143 for the Falcons. Over-under is 46. Atlanta pulled out a really nice win over Green Bay last week. Detroit found a way to lose that game against Seattle. Can Detroit bounce back from that loss?
No, I thought the Lions were bad when they were healthy, and they are very not healthy right now. They've got injuries everywhere. The Falcons will win this game outright, running and passing. I like Atlanta at +3. I like Atlanta on the money line. I like all the overs for the player props for their skill players. If Desmond Midler can't look great in this one, he's not going to look great. Like, they could win this game and still make a quarterback change the following week. Detroit's pass defense has been horrible. If he cannot take advantage of it this week, then they may really have to consider changing quarterbacks.
I agree. I like Atlanta to win this game outright. They just know who they are, and they know what they're going to do to win football games. And if they just run the ball 50 times this game, they'll do it. If they have to just not throw the ball very much, they won't. We saw Atlanta do it last year with Cleveland. I think they can get away with doing that against Detroit because that Detroit defense just isn't very good across the board. The over-under sits at 46. I do think we'll see lots of points because I think even though Detroit's banged up, their offense is still pretty good. Jared Goff always plays well in the dome, so maybe like a semi-shootout, but I think Atlanta gets to 30. I think Detroit probably gets to 20.
Yeah, that gets you there, so I can see that.
The team Atlanta beat last week is the Green Bay Packers, who I took the under on before the season. I'm taking what I thought about this team before the season, crumpling it up, and I'm throwing it in the trash. They're pretty good across the board. Jordan Love does not look overwhelmed. He looks like he spent his time on the sidelines really learning the game and understanding how to play quarterback. The Packers will be hosting the New Orleans Saints. They are now 1-point favorites. This was a 2-point line earlier in the week. The Packers are minus 120 on the money line. The Saints plus 100. Over-under sits at 42. While I've been impressed with Jordan Love, I've mostly seen what I expected from Derek Carr, Jimmy. He's just not very good. How good do you think that New Orleans defense is, though?
They're okay to good. I think that's as far as I would go.
Okay.
I think the Packers are 3 points better than the Saints, so I'm taking the Packers here. I don't think there's much else there.
That Saints offense just doesn't look good.
Yeah, and now who knows? Like when they get Kamara back here, I think he comes back week 4. That may add a little wrinkle to it. It might look a little better, but right now they look like the second or third best team in their division.
Yeah, they were the favorites coming in. Neither one of us really liked them, though.
Nope.
Our final game that we'll cover this week is the Seattle Seahawks. They are hosting the Carolina Panthers. The Hawks are 5.5-point favorites, minus 240 on the money line, plus 196 on the money line for the Panthers. Over-under sits at 42. Whew. This doesn't look like a fun game for Bryce Young, Jimmy.
No. Seattle better be a touchdown better than the Panthers. Like, that's just, to me, that, like, Pete Carroll coaching in this game, I think this is, please just give yourself an easy bet Seattle here. Seattle wins this game by more than a touchdown.
Yeah.
Seattle gets this win.
Bryce
and
Young,
Carolina continues to look really bad.
Bryce Young just doesn't look like an NFL quarterback.
No, and you feel bad. You feel bad for these young guys with cameras all over the field, but, man, it's rough when you lined up to take a snap not under center. Like, that's rough.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know.
It's not a good look.
I don't know if you saw that clip, but it was pretty bad. Like,
no, I'm gonna have to look it up now.
Yeah, they were in shotgun, and he lined up behind the guard instead of the center. Miles Sanders had to push him over.
Oh man! And
like,
speaking of players that just don't look like they really belong on NFL fields anymore, Miles Sanders, how he keeps getting playing time. He's just Philadelphia didn't even play him in the Super Bowl. Like, there's a reason for these things. I know we didn't talk about it earlier, but Kareem Hunt coming to the Browns, like, this was a guy they said had lost a step last year, which is why they didn't play him. So, like, what are you expecting now?
Well,
getting back to this game, Seattle should roll in this game. If they can't, I think that's more of a reflection on who the Seahawks are than who Carolina is.
I agree.
They had that big comeback win last week against Detroit, but that Detroit defense can be had. And then Goff made a mistake, and that seems to happen quite a bit in close games with him.
Shocked I am. Let me tell you.
Well, that wraps up this week's slate, Jimmy. We covered a lot of games that maybe we don't necessarily like the lines, but we really like a lot of the we definitely like a lot of the player props available, especially for some of these units that are just showing they can dominate 4 quarters.
Absolutely.
It looks like a good week to make money for our bettors out there, Jimmy, and it looks like a good week to pick up some money for us. We've already started out hot. Let's keep that going. As always, Jimmy, thank you for joining me to break all this down.
No place I'd rather be, brother.
And I want to thank all of you for listening. You can find all our podcasts right here if you like and subscribe. Every time we drop a new pod, you will get the notification so you can hear these winning bets. For Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore. Thank you for listening to No Broken Legs.